Good afternoon from Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. We're in the friendliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, as we look towards that beautiful White House, somewhat of an overcast day in our nation's capital. We have the latest news from the Trump White House. President Trump is currently undergoing his an annual physical at Walter Reed Medical Center. He will then be en route to the winter or southern White House, otherwise known as Mar-a-Lago, a beautiful place that he has owned for the last 40 years. You know, the original builder and owner of that beautiful building wanted her estate to be a presidential retreat. And once again, it is thanks to the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief, President Donald John Trump. We'd like to thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Colonial Metals Group. You know, the Chinese are absolutely out of control. This Communist Party seeking to perpetuate a trade war with President Trump, and they actually think they're going to win. What an absolute joke. But regardless of what's happening with the Chinese Communist Party, what's happening here right in America, all of these markets can affect you, the American consumer, and ultimately your goals for retirement. So please join me in grabbing this no obligation guide on gold and silver from Colonial Metals Group with the Paul Stone CEO, a wonderful man. You open up to here and you see that gold going up over 7,000% since 1971, since Nixon left the gold standard. This no obligation guide can be obtained by scanning that QR code now. So shield your savings today with Colonial Metals Group or go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. This will offer all of the information you need to know on those big things in life, those extremely large purchases or even retirement. So people like Judge Jeanine Pirro, great patriots out there endorsing Colonial Metals Group as the best in the gold and silver business. So reach out to them today, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. A great thing to do as we face next week with tax day and that irritant, but nonetheless, gold and silver adding to your portfolio. Smart to do in addition to properties, assets, 401ks, and IRA. Colonial Metals Group, Paul Stone, all there for you. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And speaking on these amazing things happening right now with tariffs, with a potential further trade war with the Chinese Communist Party, we had the opportunity of having Adam Savitt on from AFPI to really dive deep into everything regarding his expertise on the Chinese Communist Party. He's actually directing AFPI's initiative on China to not only watch what's taking place there, but also to prepare our American economy for the future, for this populist movement focused on you, on free and fair trade deals that benefit the American worker and not the globalist class like we saw with President Trump's living predecessors. So we'll toss that there now to Adam Savitt, a great interview with him just from earlier today. Are with Adam Savitt, who is AFPI's director of the China Initiative. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Adam. You know, China will always be more fragile with a full-on trade war with the United States, and their immediate reciprocal and retaliatory tariffs really taking a huge initiative up against President Trump. We know that Chairman Xi is a tough guy. Even President Trump has mentioned that, but I think they respect each other and their ability to negotiate on the world stage. But how truly will they fare up against the American markets?
Well, I think you're right. You know, this really is a risk on China's part. They really are playing with fire. And that's because we only export about a third of the goods to them that they export to us. And that means that in a tariff war, we will always be in the driver's seat. They can do a reciprocal tariff. I think right now it keeps on changing, but I think we're at 145% on them, including the 20% earlier tariff on fentanyl. Now they've slapped us with 145% tariff. I'm not an economist, but I've read that basically when you get over about 100% tariff, that effectively will stop trade because most goods will not be worth it to export at that point. So China, again, being 3 times more reliant on that export movement will be at an inherent disadvantage. And you point out another thing. This is a political battle, not only between the two leaders, but internally within their countries too. So of course, Donald Trump is dealing with his constituency and making sure that workers and industries get their due, that prices don't go up too high. She is dealing with a similar thing, except his politics is also very fragile because part of the compact, the society in China, part of the agreement, quote unquote, is that he'll bring you prosperity, although he won't bring you political freedom. Now, if he's not bringing you either, the population could get restless.
Now, why is China so weak financially speaking? Is it because of what happened post-COVID? Is it simply because they are a communist nation? We know that they are moving Uyghur Muslims into concentration camps, at least according to our national security and those spy satellites, but they're also oppressing all of their citizens. I mean, they live in these buildings right on top of one another. It's completely the antithesis of freedom. So is it a mix of the two? Is it the fact that you just really have one party that runs all of the business and the deals within China? Why are they so weak at this moment?
Yeah, my answer would be yes, or all of the above. Yes, there's many reasons that are contributing to their economic weakness. The biggest background long-term reason is their demographics. So they have a rapidly aging population, and unlike Japan and South Korea and other countries that have gone through this aging process, they've gotten old before they've gotten rich, we like to say. And that means that there's going to be a huge strain. There already is a strain on their social safety net, on their social services, et cetera. As you point out, they're a communist nation, and so by definition, they're inflexible. They're a top-down planned economy. The government is involved in every sector of the economy. They choose who wins and who loses. A lot of times that's chosen on political favoritism as opposed to actual efficiency or dynamic performance in the markets. Their unemployment is very, very high. They're heavily reliant on their real estate sector, so the government juiced that up a lot with infrastructure projects and subsidies, and now they've overbuilt their real estate sector. They have way too much inventory to move, basically. So all sorts of structural problems.
And perhaps the one-child policy that was once in place that really have led to more men being in China than women. So simple procreation being an issue in China. Of course, we have our own here with people just having families later because of the economy. But talk to us about Liberation Day and why the tariffs will end up being a good move to regrow the manufacturing base of this nation, to strengthen the dollar, to really unleash the economic engine that is America. Because many people, we look at these things quarter to quarter versus the Chinese Communist Party looking 200 years down the road. So we have the benefit of freedom looking daily at our stocks. And some people, they really have lost money recently. But why will this be good for someone, say, upper middle class, living in suburban America, concerned about their finances and their savings?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic with those concerned about the finances. I'm looking at the same numbers, and of course, I have investments as well. But yes, this is not about the next few days, the next few weeks, even the next few months. This is about a fundamental reorganization of the relationship between the United States and China, especially in the economic realm. So, as you point out, the very long-term vision here is that putting tariffs on these important sectors, in industrial manufacturing sectors such as automobiles, electric batteries, steel, aluminum, this will eventually bring investment back to the United States in physical plant, in factories that will bring those manufacturing jobs back. But also in the short to medium term, this is resetting the trading relationships with both friends and allies, some of whom Trump has pointed out have taking advantage of certain trade relationships that we have with them. So even allies like Japan, again, Korea, Taiwan, have been subsidizing certain of their sectors or have been sort of using non-tariff barriers to exclude some of our exports, for example, certain types of meat, pork and beef. Those will be reset. We'll just have a reordering coming back to the table. And again, I focus on Asia particularly, but that's actually the region. Our allies in Asia have been the first at the table. The Treasury Secretary, as well as President Trump, have stated, Japan is our closest ally in the region. They'll be first at the table to make a fair deal, and that's also going to change the fortunes of the average American.
Share with us the long game and some of the goals of AFPI, specifically when it looks at China and their scary influence. I mean, you look at different books that the former Allied commander in Europe writing books on 2034, 2054, somewhat of historical narratives, but that are looking into the future based on this evil regime. What is your organization looking towards down the road, as President Trump is a lame duck? Still so much work to be done over the course of nearly 4 years now, 81 days into office, but he will be leaving office most likely January of 2029. So what is your organization looking to do, not only within the realm of Republican politics, but also beyond, for populist tariff movements in order to secure not only the United States homeland, but have truly free, fair, and reciprocal trade as a whole for the United States?
Sure. Well, I mean, tariffs are a big part of that vision that we built out. But if you zoom back a little bit more, it's strategic decoupling. Okay, we want a fundamental separation between the United States and China. Now, if it was a matter of snapping our fingers, if it was on the moral level, we'd want to completely decouple from that communist regime, which oppresses its own people. Over 1 billion people, as you pointed out, enslave certain parts of their population and generally exports misery politically and so on. However, we are going to be dependent on certain things now. But even the Biden administration continued many of the Trump tariffs, and they also instituted new controls, which we supported, on exporting high technology, and that's of course the semiconductors, quantum computing, AI-related technologies. Now, what President Trump is doing is expanding that out as far as possible, again, underlining strategic decoupling. So removing everything we can while not damaging the American economy. That's something that's arguable. Some people are saying it's going too far or too fast. I think this is a necessary a period of pain, and we had to rip that Band-Aid off. We need to figure out what we really can stand and what we can't in this relationship. So that's a fundamental question. We also support our allies in the region. We support a strong deterrent posture in the region, but an America First defense policy where we rely on strong regional allies who also pull their own weight. That's the core of our philosophy.
And with the president's plan, with lowering corporate taxes from that 21% rate to 15% if possible, and then also just individual taxes, perhaps we'll see something more like an external revenue service, reforming the internal revenue service. But we have many more days, weeks, and months to see here. Adam Savitt, thank you so much for joining us, the director of AFPI's China Initiative and expert on these tariffs. And I'm sure we'll have you back on soon. We'd love to, just to see all of the developments happening. As you mentioned, it is a gray area, but much more to come when it deals with this trade war that is currently underway.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
And a great conversation with Adam. Always nice to have those professionals on to really dissect these tariffs for you, because a lot has changed this week. President Trump, of course, meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israel will take down any of those trade barriers with the United States as a result of the new tariffs. Also mentioning that there really should not be any tariff battle between our two great nations. And Bibi also mentioning to the world that other countries should stop their tariff threats, especially the European Union, among others, against the United States. So President Trump reacting to all this and putting a 90-day moratorium on any tariffs around the world and focusing solidly on the Chinese Communist Party and the way they've manipulated their currency. Remember that Otto Pen Joe Biden welcomed them in with a glass of champagne at the White House in 2000, when then Bill Clinton, the president of the United States, was also glowing that it would somehow help our markets. Well, we now know that over the course of 25 years, China has enslaved many other nations, especially in Africa and South America, to do their bidding, and it's harmed us, the United States, in turn. This is not only an economic issue, but a national security issue. So much fun going on this Friday. Happy Masters Friday to you at home. Also, happy birthday to a dear friend of mine, Julie Price, otherwise known as Mom. I have some friends back in Atlanta. She is a wonderful, wonderful lady, and we wish her the happiest of birthdays, and a viewer here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. If you have any America First stories or anything that's pertaining to your neck of the woods, or if you have a big birthday celebration like Julie does today into this weekend, of course, feel free to reach out to us at feedback@rsbn.tv. That's feedback@rsbn.tv. We'd love to hear from you on all of those issues in your neck of the woods, because we are your go-to not only for a live desk focused on the Beltway, but also outside of the Beltway, and bringing those stories to you that are important, that matter to you, that matter about your financial future. It's not just President Trump and Vice President Vance and the 119th Congress, although they're important to watch and see all in real time. And that's also what we do here at the network. We show their speeches. We do not cut away from hearings. You get to hear when Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, for example, talks about how she believes, based on the evidence, based on the intelligence she's seen from the JFK assassination files, that there were actually two shooters. That's going to be seen here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's unlike anywhere else in the stratosphere, in the social media sphere, because we want to bring everything unbridled to you, the American people, access to your government, transparent and true, just as this administration hopes to bring to you. So today, the latest news from the Trump White House: President Trump currently undergoing his physical examination at Walter Reed Medical Center. We will stay on that and make sure that you get to see all of the updates. I'm sure they will be glowing, and looking forward to seeing the health of the president, someone who is just nonstop around the clock. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Questions like, when will Bitcoin hit that 150,000, whether before next year or before certain months? You can make those trades and bets right now in real time. Trade on the most important events at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code now and share your thoughts with not only the American people, but make some money doing it. Just kind of makes sense. Kalshi is KALSHI.com/RSBN. One of the great sponsors here at the network. Thank you, Kalshi.com, for sponsoring us here. This is the best place to trade on the most important events. And speaking of all the events that happened at the White House this week, North Dakota State visiting. They are the NCAA FCS football champions. So they used to be known as Division I AA, but visiting President Trump this week. Also, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series champions, having great times with President Trump. Also, the president winning on more executive orders when it comes to the river waters and clean air and energy for specifically the state of Michigan. Even the presumptive Democrat nominee in 2028, dare I say, Gretchen Whitmer, joining the secretaries and President Trump in the Oval Office for this important reforms that need to happen for the great Wolverine state. So even Democrats getting on board with President Trump, because it's about we the people versus the deep state, a globalist government that has really failed with its policies, especially when it comes to the middle class and when it comes to strengthening the American economy. But this constitutional governance, this new way of doing things, this common sense approach, President Trump bringing right to the table at that resolute desk at the Oval Office. Now, if you did not catch earlier coverage today, Caroline Leavitt, the great White House press secretary, was able to field multiple questions. Again, her second press conference this week to the American people through our media. Of course, with the new media seat right there, showcasing that the White House is committed to sharing as much information, as much transparency with the American people on a daily basis. Again, if you want to sit in that seat, whitehouse.gov/new media. So many new voices that have been given this wind set to their backs as they fly high in the sky. They don't need the corporate, the mainstream anymore. It's all about bringing the truth and real questions, real investigations, real journalism to you, the American people. So let's toss that there back to what happened a couple hours ago. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt with a press briefing in the James S. Brady briefing room.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. As you all know, the President is currently undergoing his routine and long-scheduled physical at Walter Reed Medical Center, and we will have a readout from the White House physician. Last night, Kassina Karolina arrived back safely in the United States after being detained in Russia for more than a year. Since Inauguration Day, President Trump and his team have secured the release of more than 40 detained Americans abroad. This is more than half of the number of Americans released by Joe Biden in 4 years, and President Trump has brought these Americans home in 80 days. This administration will continue to work hard to bring Americans home from around the world. As I've said before, and I will say it again today, everybody in this room has access to the most transparent and accessible president in American history. The cabinet meeting yesterday was further proof. President Trump asked each secretary to provide an update to all of you in the media on the critical work they are doing at their respective agencies to deliver on his agenda. And according to new reporting from the Washington Times, who I believe is in this room today, President Trump answered nearly 100 questions from the press, all of you, during his first 3 open press cabinet meetings this year. That's nearly 20 times the number answered by Joe Biden in cabinet meetings during his entire 4 years in office. In more excellent economic news that was released yesterday, the Consumer Price Index report showed inflation fell to 2.4% in March, smashing expectations for the second straight month in a row. This marked the first drop in consumer prices dating all the way back to the COVID pandemic. Prescription drug prices saw the largest monthly decline on record. Prices for airfare, used vehicles, and car insurance all decreased as well. And energy prices fell 2.4% in March, driven by plummeting gas prices around the country. Also yesterday, House Republicans answered President Trump's call to move forward the budget resolution and officially set the stage for the passage of one big, beautiful bill. The American economy will boom after this bill is passed and the rest of the president's pro-growth agenda goes into effect. The largest tax cuts and deregulation in history, coupled with our energy industry unleashed and renegotiated trade agreements that put America first, are the ultimate formula to usher in the golden age of America. On that note, more than 75 countries have now reached out to the Trump administration, eager to address the trade issues that have exploited America and hurt our workers in the process. The phones have been ringing off the hook to make deals. And these countries wisely heeded President Trump's warning not to retaliate, and as a result, they were rewarded with a 90-day pause and substantially lower reciprocal tariff rates during this period so potential solutions can be achieved. Past presidents just willingly accepted the failed status quo on trade that ripped off our workers and our companies. But that's not who this president is. He creates his own leverage and negotiates deals better than anyone else who has sat in the Oval Office before him. And that process is currently underway. On another matter, the deadline for registration under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both. As President Trump and Secretary Noem have both said, if you register and you leave now, you choose to self-deport, you may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if not, you will be arrested, fined, deported, never to return to our country again. The Trump administration will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws. We will not pick and choose which laws to enforce. We must know who is in our country for the safety and the security of our homeland and for all American citizens. I also have a note from the First Lady to share with you on this Friday. On Tuesday this week, First Lady Melania Trump celebrated the advancement of the Take It Down Act in the House Energy and Commerce Committee. The important legislation passed the committee with bipartisan support, and as you may remember, the President talked about this bill in his address to a joint session of Congress last month. The First Lady remains dedicated to her championing child well-being, ensuring that every young person can thrive, and, of course, championing her Be Best agenda. We urge Congress to swiftly pass this important legislation. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jordan Berman. Jordan is a social media content creator and influencer and a lawyer who grew up following breaking down the news from a neutral perspective. Jordan is the host of her own podcast called Unbiased Politics, where she dissects the top stories from the week from a legal perspective. Jordan focuses on bringing back real journalism from a nonpartisan perspective and has mastered explaining complex legal decisions to a mass audience in the short-form context. Her two biggest platforms are TikTok and Instagram, where she has roughly 500,000 followers on each. With that, please kick us off, Jordan.
Thank you. As you know, yesterday the House passed the SAVE Act, and many married women, soon-to-be married women, are concerned that the new voter ID requirements may inhibit their access to the polls. What assurances can you give women voters in America to ease their concerns?
Sure. Well, the SAVE Act, as you mentioned, was passed by the House yesterday. This is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. I believe I'm getting that correct. And this act is a common sense measure. It would require proof of citizenship for voting in our elections. The Democrats have been fear-mongering about this bill, have been saying that married women, if their name has changed, they didn't change it on their identification, would not be able to vote. That is complete fallacy. There are outlined in the bill about how to avoid that. The president very much supports a common sense solution to ensuring that only citizens can engage in our elections. This is critical to improving the integrity of our elections and also the trust that American citizens need to have in our electoral process. So the president supports this bill, and that is a myth that has been proven wrong by the text of this bill. And I believe some of the co-sponsors of the bill have been very vocal in addressing that. And certainly I myself, as a married woman, would not stand before this podium if the president did not support such a common sense measure.
Thank you. For my next question, I actually want to give a voice to the American people. I sourced the question from one of my listeners. Her name is Bryn. She is from Oregon. And she asked, what, if any, plans do you have, the administration, for the money that will be generated by tariffs imposed on foreign goods? How will the administration facilitate the development of American industries when many critical components, labor, parts, etc., are much cheaper and more feasible from foreign entities?
It's a great question from your listener, and I want to thank her for submitting it to you to ask. That's the part of the new media seat is so that everyday Americans across the country have a voice in this room. So thank you again for being here. Thanks for the question. The president's point about his trade and tariff agenda is to bolster our manufacturing industries here in our country, to bring down the cost of living here in our country, and to ensure that we are maintaining critical supply chains here in America. We cannot be dependent on countries like China if we want this country to be strong and wealthy. So the president wants to restore wealth to America by shoring up these jobs here at home, which will result in good paying jobs and higher wages for the American public. And so Americans should trust in that process. He effectively implemented tariffs in his first term while driving down the cost of living in this country, and that's what he's focused on doing again. Thank you.
As a follow-up question, could I just ask, are there any specific ideas that the administration has as to what that revenue, specific tariff revenue, will be used for?
Yes, to the heart of your question, the president has spoke about the trillions of dollars that he expects in revenue from tariffs and how we can use it to pay down our debt and to ensure that we are no longer faced with a crippling national debt in the trillions that is going to bankrupt our nation for future generations. So that money coming back home will make America in the green rather than in the red, which any small business owner across the country, I believe, can appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kelly.
Hey.
Tomorrow there will be negotiations between the United States and Iran in Oman. What are the president's chief goals for that, and is he satisfied with how Iran is responding to this? They don't want direct face-to-face negotiations, instead sort of old-school shuttle diplomacy where they're in separate rooms and messages are passed back and forth. So is the president comfortable with the arrangement there, and what is the chief objective?
Well, I have spoken to both the president and also his national security team who will be engaged in these discussions. These will be direct talks with the Iranians, and I want to make that very clear. I also spoke to the president just last night about his goal when it comes to Iran, and he has reiterated repeatedly to all of you publicly and also privately to his team here at the White House, his ultimate goal and the ultimate objective is to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. The president believes in diplomacy, direct talks, talking directly in the same room in order to achieve that goal. But he's made it very clear to the Iranians, and his national security team will as well, that all options are on the table, and Iran has a choice to make. You can agree to President Trump's demand, or there will be all hell to pay. And that's how the president feels. He feels very strongly about it.
And can you update us on Mr. Witkoff in Russia and what's happening with direct communications with Vladimir Putin?
I can confirm that Mr. Witkoff is in Russia to have direct communications with the Kremlin and with Vladimir Putin. This is another step in the negotiating process towards a ceasefire and an ultimate peace deal in Russia and Ukraine. As these negotiations are ongoing, I obviously will not get ahead of the president or his team, but I think the president has been quite clear that he's been continually frustrated with both sides of this conflict, and he wants to see this fighting end. He wants the war to end. We believe we have leverage in negotiating a deal, to a peace deal, and we're going to use that leverage, and the president is determined to see this through.
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. President Trump has said China wants to make a deal on tariffs. The president says he has a great relationship with Chinese President Xi. He's willing to speak with him directly. Why doesn't the president just pick up the phone and get this ball going?
All of the things the president just said are true. The president, as I said from the podium just a few days ago when I was up here, would be gracious if China intends to make a deal with the United States. If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
So is he waiting for China to make the first move here?
I'm not going to comment on communications that are happening or may not be happening, or either way. We'll leave it to our national security team to get these discussions underway. And as always, in the effort of transparency, we will provide updates moving forward. But the president has made it very clear he's open to a deal with China.
Why is he optimistic that China's going to make a deal or wants to make a deal? If they're not talking, where's that optimism come
He's
from?
optimistic.
Hey,
Sean.
why would any of our allies work with us to isolate China in a trade war if we're treating friend and foe alike?
You'll have to talk to our allies who are reaching out to us. The phones are ringing off of the hooks. They've made it very clear they need the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer base. You saw Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office with the president saying that he was going to bring down all of their monetary tariffs and their non-monetary tariff trade barriers as well. We've heard from South Korea. We've heard from Japan. The president has spoken to Vietnam. We have Italy coming to the White House next week. There's a reason for that, Sean, and it's because they need the United States of America and our business model and our markets to survive, and the president is using that leverage to our advantage. Michael.
Hey, thank you, Caroline. Two-part question on China. Beijing says it will simply ignore any further tariff escalations from the U.S. Does President Trump see this as China backing down? And as a follow-up to that, what do you say to people like Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary who say, you guys simply haven't tariffed China enough?
Look, the tariff rate on China remains where it was yesterday, at the 145% level. The president made it very clear when the United States is punched, he will punch back harder. And he hopes to make a deal that benefits the American worker and our companies that have been ripped off for far too long. And he's finally taking bold and courageous action to do that. You know, taking on China is, in the terms of trade and tariffs, is something that both Democrats and Republicans alike have spoken about for decades. President Trump is finally doing it.
Caroline, real quick, the president of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high. And we very much appreciate President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation and the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our country. Sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The president spoke quite highly of the great relationship that he has with the Turkish president. We know that the president might be heading off to the Middle East very soon. Is he planning to meet with the Turkish president, either here in the White House or in Turkey? Any plans?
I don't have any details about the president's overseas trip other than to say he was surely going to Saudi Arabia. There could be more countries as part of that trip. We're working on the details, and as I've said repeatedly, we will provide the details of that trip as soon as possible.
A trip to Turkey, or his invitation to the Turkish president, is under consideration?
I'm not going to comment on the details of the trip, but once they're confirmed, I will certainly let you all know. Yes, Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to ask you about presidential health and also about tariffs. On presidential health, are there plans for the president's physician to come here and take our questions? And also, President Trump repeatedly makes remarks about the former president's health. Is he considering using his executive powers to bring any greater transparency there?
As I have said, the president is undergoing his long-scheduled physical. It's a yearly physical that every president receives, and we will provide an update on that by the president's physician as soon as we possibly can.
And about the former president and transparency regarding his health, are there...
Well, I can tell you there was certainly a lack of transparency from the former president, from the entire former administration, and frankly, a lot of people in this room when it came to the health and the competence of the former president of the United States, Joe Biden. There was one of the greatest cover-ups and, frankly, political scandals this nation has ever seen. It's been unraveled in some recent books that are being written by journalists who engaged in that cover-up and scandal, which is quite ironic. But this president is clearly committed to transparency. You in this room see him and hear from him on a daily basis. You in this room know from covering him, it's hard to keep up with him. He is a machine working around the clock every single day. And the physician, after today's physical, will provide an update on the report in the effort of transparency.
If I could ask about tariffs, there have been big swings this week in the Treasury bond yields. There's a theory that it might be because of China dumping these as leverage, driving up costs for U.S. loans like mortgages. Does the White House have evidence that this is in fact a result of Chinese dumping, and if so, is there a message on that?
Not to my knowledge, but I would check in with the Treasury Department on that. I can tell you I know our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, is keeping a very close eye on the bond market. He spoke about it at the White House this week, and I know he's keeping his eyes on it day to day. Ed.
Thanks. Thank you, Caroline. So the administration, I have an administration source who's telling me that we're weeks away from the first deal with the country over tariffs. Where is the administration? How soon can we see that? And what country is that first one?
I won't reveal or get ahead of our trade team as these negotiations are obviously ongoing, but I can tell you very good progress has been made. Jameson Greer was on television this morning, and I spoke to him, and he confirmed that more than 15 offers are already on the table, which is remarkable in just a mere matter of days. And as I said earlier, we've heard from more than 75 countries around the world. This is a team effort. The president has a team of great, brilliant advisors who have been with him every step of the way, and all of them will be divvying up the workload. And I just want to give the president and his trade team credit for taking this on. This is a massive undertaking. There's no doubt about it. We take it very seriously. The president is determined to renegotiate global trade on behalf of American workers. And again, you've seen people on both sides of the aisles calling for this for years, but I think no other president lacked the courage or maybe the work ethic or the stamina to take on such a task. And I know there were some questions about the president's delayed departure earlier to Walter Reed. I'd like to address it was because he's working on this very issue, so he was running a bit behind this morning.
On the 90-day pause, what would the president need to see in order to extend that 90-day pause for countries on tariffs?
Well, I think the president addressed this yesterday when he said he's hoping that there will be good deals made before the 90 days is up, and we will cut those deals as soon as we possibly can, country by country, tailor-made deals for each and every country as they all propose unique challenges and unique assets to each country, advantages rather, and when that 90-day mark hits, the president will make that decision then.
One more, if I could, on a different subject. So a bird earlier attacked my colleague, Peter Doocy, doing a live shot at the White House.
I'm wondering if that's why Peter is absent from his seat. Is he doing okay?
He's recovering.
Has anyone checked on him?
He's recovering. Is anyone looking into that incident?
I could check in with GSA to see if anybody here is looking into it. I also understand there was a mouse in the briefing room earlier today, so I'm hoping somebody checked in on that, as I'm hoping it doesn't run up here and distract me. That would be a good way for all of you to distract me, actually. Have a mouse come run up here. So I'll get an answer for you on that, out of respect for our good friend Peter. Jeff?
Why is American consumer confidence so low?
Look, I think there's a great optimism in this economy, great optimism for the American people, a lot of reason for people to feel optimistic. The president is, as I just said, trying to renegotiate the global trade agenda that has ripped off the American people for far too long. As he said, this is going to be a period of transition. He wants consumers to trust in him, and they should trust in him. Look at what he did in his first term. And I just want to reiterate all of the reasons to be confident since you asked, Jeff. For those watching at home, yesterday the CPI report, inflation declined massively. Consumer prices are dropping for the first time in years. Energy prices are down. In fact, oil prices are down 20% since this president took office. Wholesale prices fell again. There have been trillions of dollars in investments into this country. Every day the president is signing executive orders to cut regulation, especially when it comes to Environmental Protection Agency, our energy industry. That's going to unleash the economic boom in this country that we saw in the president's first term. So trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
What is he asking of Americans at this time? He talked about transition costs, transition problems. Is he asking something specific for Americans to do?
No, I think the president is asking for Americans trust in Trump, as I just said, trust in his economic agenda and formula. It's a proven formula that works. And by the way, clearly the American people do in fact trust him because they did just overwhelmingly elect him to this office. Jennifer.
Is he going, I'm asking about the physical, is he undergoing any general anesthesia, and can you outline any of the other tests that he's doing today?
He is not. He is undergoing quite a few tests, imaging. Again, it's a it's a yearly physical, so there's quite a lot that goes into it to make sure the president is accomplishing all of his goals, and we will provide a readout of that as soon as we can.
And will you be committed to releasing all of the results, as many of the results as possible?
Of course, yes. The president's physician will do that. I spoke with him this morning.
Sure. Will you guys also consider releasing the president's fitness plan? He actually looks healthier than ever before. Healthier than he did 8 years ago, and I'm sure everybody in this room could agree. Is he working out with Bobby Kennedy? And is he eating less McDonald's?
I can confirm the president is in very good shape, as you see, on a near daily basis here. And in that vein, thank God it's Friday. It's been a very long and busy week here at the White House. We will see you all on Monday, and we will release the results of that report as soon as we can. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great week.
And as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt mentioned, thank God it's Friday. But not only any Friday, it's Masters Friday. So that's why you might be wondering, why is Robert wearing so much green? It's because it's my favorite weekend of the year. Also, we're going into the end of the Lenten season, this great season of fasting and reflection and prayer, into Palm Sunday, which is something celebrated by Christians worldwide as they reflect on the life, death, passion, of course, the resurrection of their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, leading into Easter. So it's a beautiful time of year, this springtime, this revival that we're seeing at the White House. In fact, it was shared earlier today, but Caroline Leavitt, right before going out there to do her press briefing, praying with fellow colleagues and staff members at the White House, invoking Jesus Christ's name for protection, for guidance, and for peace, as they execute on a number of different issues for you, the American people. And as she mentioned, President Trump was somewhat late to getting over to Walter Reed, hitting on these crucial, important issues facing the American economy and our national security. So a gentleman who is like a machine, nonstop, going around the clock to serve you, the American people. And thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, 1775coffee.com/RSBN. This is one of the greatest deals you can get right here at the network. The Longevity Bundle. It is truly the ultimate kind of bundle with only 1,000 available. It's not just coffee, but it has special compounds in its natural ingredients that put years off of your life. It's fantastic. Or you will, in 7 months, literally look 8 years younger. I'm not kidding about this. It's amazing. I got some myself. I really enjoy it. So not only will you have a delicious cup of coffee, but you'll look younger in as short as 7 months. 1775coffee.com/RSBN, an easy code to remember. You'll also save $150. So this longevity bundle going for $99. Think about that. But again, only 1,000 available. I'm surprised if they will last even into next week. So be sure to get yours today. And maybe you look more like President Trump, because doesn't he look like he's reverse aging in this process? He's never looked better. So we are excited to see the results of that physical. 78 years young, and he can run laps over most people in and around them. He is the art of the deal maker, and this is the best deal that's out there right now. The longevity bundle from 1775coffee.com/RSBN. You will just enjoy this very much. It's tasty, it's delicious, but with those compounds, again, taking years off of your life. So be sure to order now. Only 1,000 available. 1775coffee.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And there's a live look there at the White House. We are covering the latest news from the Trump White House. This has been one of the busiest as we are in week 12 of this administration, 81 days since taking the oath of office, and warmer temperatures right around the corner for most of us. We had somewhat of a cold front dip down all the way here into the friendliest village on the plains, of course, Auburn, Alabama. A little bit cold over this week, but I know if you compare it to way up north, it's still pretty nice here. Sun shining. We are in the 70s. We are ready for Masters golf if you are watching all of that. President Trump also welcoming a number of different teams to the White House this week, including the Los Angeles Dodgers, the world champions, and the North Dakota State University football champions from last season. And there's a live look now at the greatest university in the land, Auburn University, that is. You know, in the SEC, they say it just matters more. And this is the premier university in the Southeastern Conference. If you have a young patriot at home that's looking to further advance their studies and really get ready for that next stage in life, there is perhaps no finer institution than Auburn University. And what you're looking at there is College and Samford, a beautiful corner, Toomer's Corner, in fact, where you can enjoy some lemonade, perhaps get some memorabilia in their old corner drugstore that is one of the coolest things to see on campus. Of course, looking out onto that quad there, it's a wonderful place. This is right where many of the restaurants are as well. Even Hamilton's right down the street on Magnolia, a delicious spot. And the Graduate, also a great rooftop, and many others where you can enjoy some of the best food and drinks on the campus as you explore Auburn University. And thank you again to Coach Bruce Pearl. Congratulations on an amazing season with your men's basketball team that reached the Final Four last week. Of course, disappointing that they fell short, but nonetheless, great servant leaders who will go on to do amazing things, whether that's the NBA or different lines of work. Perhaps if they stay here in Auburn, Alabama, or even go on to other areas of our great country. They were very inspiring and made it an exciting run, plenty to be proud of. And as they mentioned, make sure you call God. That's their symbol, because he did not want his players ignoring their Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. What a great message. And someone, Coach Pearl, very pro-Israel, very much common sense. Nice to see that once again in our culture, in our sports. And a lot of it is thanks to President Trump for standing firm, for literally taking bullets for this country, for going up against the lawfare and the fake impeachments and the Russia hoax and all the nonsense that came his direction and really harmed his family in the process. But they stuck together, as families should do. Always stay together, stand your ground, especially when you're fighting for the truth and fighting on behalf of the American people. It's a good lesson to learn. And we know that President Trump is nonstop in his engagement to make America great again, as we are honored to cover all of the news inside of the Beltway and outside of the Beltway with you, the great American people, watching RSBN Live. And if you do like what you're seeing with this awesome live desk, please like, share, and subscribe. The best way to do that is by going to your favorite social media app, whether it be X or Twitter. Perhaps now both the same. Sometimes I call them something different. Is it a tweet now? I'm not sure. Or do you exit? I don't know. Either way, you're sending out that X, and it's one of the more popular ones. And fixed thanks to the great Elon Musk, but True Social, another great app. Also Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be. Please like, share, and subscribe. Even LinkedIn, sometimes we end up on there, even though that's more of that business networking site. But then also there's rsbnetwork.com/newsletter for all of the up-to-date stories on what's happening at the White House, in Congress, and throughout the United States. And if you can, we'd be honored to have you donate at rsbnetwork.com/donate, a great way to help spur and keep citizen journalism alive, because this is the era now of new journalism. This is your government. This is your world, and we want to be there on the forefront, living history in the front row and showing you again everything, whether it's entire speeches, entire press conferences, entire hearings, meetings between the tops and heads of the government. Of course, this weekend, incredibly important for the Trump administration because they will be negotiating with the Iranians. And it's going to be high level. We'll see maybe President Trump involved in these specific meetings, perhaps not. We'll see more after they do take place. And of course, President Bukele of El Salvador, as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt mentioned, coming to the White House on Monday. That will make for 11 world leaders that have come to visit President Trump since he took the oath of office. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. MyPillow.com/RSBN, the My Mattress Topper sale. Limited time only, of course. Mike Lindell, the best marketer that's out there. Get any size of this comfy mattress topper, and that is going for $99.99. Think about that. Promo code RSBN. Do not delay. Give a call today. 800-836-7566. That is 1-800-836-7566. Again, don't delay. Made in the good old U.S. of A. in Minnesota. Mike Lindell, his team, true patriots, fighting for the First Amendment, fighting for election integrity, and perhaps fighting to become the next governor of Minnesota. Mr. Mike Lindell, if you're watching, please come to RSBN to announce that bid if you're going after that, because we all know that no one likes that goof, Tim Walz, that governor up there. You know, he ran for vice president. Not many people know his name still because, as President Trump put it, he's a loser. So you don't want any more communists. We're done with the fascists. We're done with the Marxists. We're done with all of the perverts that have infiltrated our government, whether Republican or Democrat or anything else. In turn, they've made gobs and gobs of money off of government and so-called public service. There's the door. Bye-bye. It's constitutional governance. It's MAGA time. It's Maha time. And we are making that big difference. 81 days back in office now. And Mike Lindell will be a great addition up in Minnesota. So mypillow.com/RSBN. 2,000 items for up to 50% off. Doesn't only benefit the great Mike Lindell, it benefits you because you get a great night's sleep, and you also help out this great network here, Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting. And again, there's a live look of the White House. President Trump underway with his physical at Walter Reed Medical Center. Of course, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, who was President Trump's physician, said he was the healthiest president he's ever seen, and he knew a thing or two, coming on as the chief medical expertise and correspondent at Walter Reed back during the end of the Bush administration into the Obama administration. So he's a gentleman having taken care of many presidents, and he said there is no one healthier, there is no one more on top of this than President Trump. So we look forward to having those records released. As Caroline said, that would happen once they are available. And he will be en route to Palm Beach, Florida, of course, to the winter White House, the southern White House, if you will, Mar-a-Lago, and of course the founder and architect of that beautiful property. She once wished that it would be that, a presidential retreat, and President Trump owning Mar-a-Lago for the last 40 years, it has once again become that presidential retreat. And it is a lovely estate. If you ever have the opportunity to attend for one reason or the other, being that it's still a club, it is perhaps one of the most star-studded buildings in all of America. That Spanish architecture, it's so unique as it sits there in Palm Beach, Florida. And we had the opportunity to see the outside of it as we were there for, of course, the weekend where he won again the championship at the Trump International Palm Beach. So always a pleasure to be with the president to ask him questions. And thank you again to his staff for making him so available, and for him being someone who wants to be transparent with the American people, who wants to dialogue on a regular basis with those tuning into what's going on into their government. And us viewers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, perhaps the best viewers in all of the land. Thank you for sharing with everyone just what Right Side Broadcasting Network is all about. And for a decade, it was about going to these rallies, interviewing all of you, the American people. There have been 2 rallies this year to date, of course, right before the inauguration and that Las Vegas rally after President Trump took office. And he said many more to come, especially next year for the midterm election. So be sure to watch that programming note as we get to talk to you, the American people, about why MAGA and MAHA and everything in this administration inspires you on a daily basis. But of course, here we are covering as your go-to live desk, everything happening inside of the Beltway, outside of the Beltway, and those America First stories pertaining to you. So if there is something happening in your neck of the woods and you want us to know about it, please feel free to reach out at feedback@rsbn.tv. That's feedback@rsbn.tv. We read everything that comes into the studio and into the offices here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We want to be your voice, especially a voice for the voiceless, to make sure no one's being taken advantage of, because we've seen over the course of the last few years the auto pen presidency and the absolute craziness that took place with inflation, a skyrocketing national debt up to $36 trillion. President Trump working every day to fix that, to secure the border, to pass things like the SAVE Act, which 208 Democrats voted against in the House. That's been passed. It awaits President Trump's signature. If you're not familiar, this goes right up against motor voter, just demanding that you have to have a licensed identification card. So whether it's a driver's license, a state ID, federal ID, perhaps a passport, you need that as proof to vote in elections. It's common sense. It goes right up against the motor voter, something that happened back in the Clinton administration to give license to illegals. And you don't necessarily have to be a resident of this great nation or even have a green card. There were too many loopholes. And we saw this problem dating back to things like the license for bribes scandal that happened in the late 1990s when a Republican governor, George Ryan, he went to prison for this, was issuing illegal licenses when he was the Secretary of State in Illinois. No surprise, being such a corrupt state. Sadly, my home state, the Prairie State, a great place to grow up, but so many people leaving there because of the pension crisis, because of big government. And we would joke around that you would usually serve 2 terms as governor of Illinois, one as the governor and then one in prison. So that's been something that several have followed suit in that regard. But what that license for bribes scandal ended up happening, the death of family members, a family of 7, a pastor driving his children, his wife, just across an interstate that was very busy, an illegal alien with no driving prowess or class hours that were appropriate, drove a truck into a family of 7. Just a tragic situation. The kids passing away, had so much life ahead of them. These are the results of not following the law. These are the results of putting either Republicans or Democrats into place that are willing to get rich on the backs of the hardworking people in America. And that's why this populist movement became came to full circle really with President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump coming down the golden escalator a decade ago, stating quite simply, we need to close our borders. We need to bring back wealth in this country. We need to manufacture goods and then export them, and also have an incentive for companies to come to the United States to do business here. And that's why we see Hyundai pouring billions into the Southeast. That's why Toyota will have many of its plants not only in the Carolinas, but also up in the Wolverine state of Michigan, among others. Thousands of jobs being created thanks to this president who knows something about money. Remember, he said that to crooked Hillary Clinton back during the 2016 campaign. It's about time that we have someone who knows a thing or two about money. And President Trump knows that, having attended the Wharton School of Finance, the University of Pennsylvania, way back in the day. We're going to take a quick commercial break at the 4:30 mark here, live from Right Side Broadcasting Network in beautiful Auburn, Alabama. We are covering right there inside the Beltway, the White House, President Trump, as he undergoes his examination and annual physical over at Walter Reed Medical Center. Stick with us. We'll see you back in a couple of minutes.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. We are covering the latest news from the Trump White House on a rainy day in our nation's capital, but those April showers, they do bring May flowers, and they make that beautiful North Lawn look even more green. And I hope you're wearing your green on this Masters Friday, an exciting day. Looking forward to the competition this weekend as we go into what is 81 days into this Trump administration, 12 weeks at this game, and he is not backing down. We are awaiting President Trump's departure to Palm Beach, Florida, of course, to spend some time, a working weekend over at the Southern Winter White House, known as Mar-a-Lago. very interesting that he met with his cabinet this week, really highlighting all of their achievements throughout the government, all doing a star-studded job. But Elon Musk, also the special government employee as he is, those days winding down. He has 130 days total to get the job done. But as we saw, he has quite a DOGE team that people thought were maybe 17, 18, 19-year-olds who were interning and perhaps going after their first job. Now, these are people, many CEOs and CFOs, among other tech expertise, and so many other people coming together to really streamline the size and scope of this federal government, a bloated bureaucracy that focused on making money for itself and harming you, the great American people, especially the middle class. But DOGE found that under the Biden administration, it was routine for Border Patrol to admit aliens into the United States with no legal status and minimal screening. So far, the Custom and Border Patrol agents identified a subset of 6,300 individuals paroled into the United States since 2023 on the FBI's Terrorist Screening Center watch list or with criminal records that were remaining in the United States. How does this even happen? These paroles have been since terminated with immediate effect under this Department of Justice. Despite having no other legal status, paroled illegal aliens are able to file for work authorization and receive Social Security numbers. So among these 6,300 paroled aliens with the criminal or terrorist records, they all had a Social Security. So they were collecting 905 collecting Medicaid, including 4 on the terrorist watch list, 276,000 paid out, 41 collecting unemployment benefits and insurance policies, some receiving up to 42,000 in benefits on a strolling and rolling basis, 22 receiving federal student loans totaling $280,000, 409 received a net tax refund. This is only for 2024, but regardless, that amounted up to $751,000. Several received SNAP food benefits, and I just sigh in disgust because there are homeless in our country that are veterans. There are people that really do need this assistance or that paid into it, and then they just don't get their checks in time or whatever it might be, or perhaps because they were political targets of the last administration, saw those taken away, including their freedoms. Think about the J6 prisoners. President Trump pardoning or commuting roughly 1,500 prisoners who were held against their own will, who did not have due process. And even if someone is charged with a crime, you have a right to a speedy trial in this nation. That's how it should be. I mean, even people like Fani Willis, you think about what she did, the Fulton DA, literally booking and fingerprinting the 45th president of the United States who became the 47th. Because we saw this lawfare for what it was. We saw the fact that Fulton County Jail, it was so disgusting. Prisoners were literally eaten alive by bugs and infestations happening in the prison. This was America, not a third world country. America. We have these Democrat DAs who are literally, they don't believe in the dignity of life. It's so sad what happened over the course of the last few years, but because of new media, because of this constitutionalist president, the people's president, we now have light at the end of the tunnel. There is a new dawn, a golden era in this country that regardless of political ideology or religious background or the color of your skin, what truly matters is the content of your character. Think about Pastor Sewell, who comes on the network often to talk about God and country. That beautiful prayer he had under that ornate rotunda on January 20th, right before President Trump took that oath of office, standing beside his predecessors, family members and friends, of course, the Congress of the United States and special VIPs, but also taking that oath under Chief Justice Roberts. It was a beautiful day when Pastor Sewell said, "Good God Almighty, we're free at last. We are free at last. Good God Almighty, we are free at last," invoking the beautiful words of Martin Luther King Jr. And that transparency coming to light with these files being released, not only of Crossfire Hurricane and the Russia hoax, but also those files detailing what really happened to JFK, what really happened to RFK and MLK, and of course, all of the spy fare, the lawfare, the ridiculousness from crooked Hillary and her comrades. My goodness, think about that, what's happened the last few years in this country and what's been revealed thanks to our technology and thanks to patriot warriors like your 47th president and FBI Director Kash Patel. How about Truth Social CEO Devin Nunes? These people all standing in the breach, and you, the American people, voting to put common sense back into the White House. Pat yourselves on the back this Masters weekend, because 81 days, 12 weeks into this administration, we're just getting started. So it's exciting to be with you here on the right side of history to bring you all unbridled access of this administration and your government in real time. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. AngelPaste.com. Experience that miracle today. Whether it's the Vitamin B Original Miracle Cream that gets rid of your dry skin willy-nilly, just throw that on. Your hands will be glowing just like mine, because I put it on when I can, when I get that dry hand thing going on. And thank God I'm down here in the Southeast. They don't get as dry as often, but you never know if you're washing your hands too much. If you go into those cold temperatures and just that dry environment, you're going to need this, and it's going to make you feel refreshed and feeling just fantastic. There's also the orange option. Immunity boosters, vitamin C, and also a natural mosquito repellent that you can purchase from angelpaste.com. What's great about all of these options? They are non-GMO, no chemicals, just good nutrients that your body can absorb and that are super MAHA approved. Secretary Kennedy would love this company, trust me. Experience the miracle today. And for the guys too out there, it's not just for the ladies, it's also for you, because there's a facial spray, also a nice black men's label so you can look cool. And in case, you know, that new girlfriend comes over a few dates in and starts investigating and snooping around your bathroom, she'll be like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing with the miracle cream. I got him. I got this. So angelpaste.com, your go-to for great creams. Thank you for sponsoring us. Christian-owned, they hire veterans, and they're based in the Lone Star State, Spring, Texas, just off of that Gulf of America. Experience that miracle today. Thank you to angelpaste.com. There's a live look at Auburn University. I wonder where I'll be watching the Masters from this weekend. Maybe that could be a Kalshi question, but there are some great spots to go and to enjoy the game and the camaraderie with all of the wonderful people who live right here in Auburn. It is truly the friendliest village on the plains. And you know what I love about living down in the Southeast? The fact that I could probably put on a MAGA hat and go out and enjoy it, and I don't have to worry about someone doing something to my food or someone yelling at me or screaming at me. These are realities in certain areas of the country. Back in Chicagoland especially, I talk to my mom about it all the time. You could never, ever have someone wearing a MAGA hat, because they would run up to you and scream at you. Not that I care at this point. I've been canceled one too many times, but I just think I would never do that to anyone with, say, a Biden bumper sticker. I might wonder where their head is, or if they are clearly thinking, maybe I'll talk to them about it politely and patriotically and, of course, peacefully. But that's what our First Amendment is about, having freedom of speech and being able to talk and dialogue without being disagreeable. My goodness, it's just so funny to me when people get so irate over a red hat. I love red hats. I have a bunch of MAGA hats. And if they're not MAGA, they're just regular red hats, because it's the color of power and awesomeness. It's the color of Tiger Woods, competing this weekend, of course, at the Masters. And I hope you will be able to enjoy this beautiful Palm Sunday weekend as we reflect on all that's good in life, especially this springtime, this Lenten season leading into Easter. And we know President Trump will be en route very soon to that southern White House of his, Mar-a-Lago. He enjoys going there on the weekends, not only to work, but to decompress, maybe play some golf. And it's good to see that with every president enjoying their time away. I've never had that issue with presidents. They want to go and enjoy themselves as long as they're getting the job done. You know, even those who are just some of the worst presidents, and we can really put them, on a list right now. The living predecessors of President Trump were some of the worst presidents. They've skyrocketed our deficit and our budgets. But, Barack Hussein Obama loved going to Hawaii. George W. Bush loved going to his ranch in Crawford, Texas. Bill Clinton, well, he had extracurricular activities that might be investigated because he liked to be on the Lolita Express. We know that from the flight logs, and I'm sure we'll see more when it comes to those Jeffrey Epstein files, because Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna working hard on those to make sure justice and liberty served against those perpetrators of human trafficking. But we'll see more and more of those investigations as you now have a transparent government working overtime for you, the American people. And that's why it's so important to remain engaged in this process. Make sure that you are staying involved in your local, whether it be the GOP clubs or you become a precinct committeeman. Perhaps you join Trump Force 47, become a caucus captain, and get involved in the midterms. And maybe, just maybe, through prayer and dialogue and discussion with your family members, you might want to be part of running yourself in 2026. Nothing better than standing in that breach and taking on the forces of evil by running for office and just doing what is common sense. Those 20 promises made and promises kept for the American people. That was back in July of last year, right after President Trump was literally shot, took a bullet for this country, and that walkout was the greatest walkout in American political history. His 20 promises became RNC policy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we've seen all of those promises made, promises kept. And let me make a promise to you, the American people. Something very important for your portfolio, it's gold and silver. You need to go to Colonial Metals Group today. And if you go to freegoldguy.com/RSBN or scan that QR code right now to shield your savings, you will get none other than this beautiful no obligation guide that I'm holding right here. This details how gold has gone up over 7,000% since 1971, since the Nixon administration went off of the gold standard. That's what it looks like right there, the Gold and Silver Guide 2025, Silver and Gold. We love that Christmas song. And make Christmas every day for you and your family as you prepare for your retirement, or maybe you're sending a student to the great Auburn University that you can see right behind me. But whatever that big thing is, whether it's properties, assets, a 401k, the IRA, you can roll all of that into tangible gold and silver, something needed in this day and age as we see the Chinese Communist Party focused on war games with Taiwan, on trade wars with the United States. But we know we are going to win big league, because even talking to Adam Shavit from AFPI earlier today, talking about the importance of having gold and silver as part of your portfolio. Paul Stone, the CEO of this great organization, and Colonial Metals Group, does it better than anyone else, bar none. So scan that QR code now, shield your savings, heed the warnings of Warren Buffett and other billionaires putting their money into the stock market and into commodities like gold and silver. freegoldguy.com/RSBN. Do not delay. Make sure you get your no obligation guide today. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And there is the White House. We are awaiting President Trump's departure from Walter Reed Medical Center en route via Marine One, then to Air Force One. And we can send him down to beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, where he enjoys the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, perhaps watching the Masters there with friends and family and the members of that glorious club. In the meantime, we can send it over to the EOs signed this week by President Trump, so we keep you in the loop of this amazing White House. 81 days into office, 12 weeks into office for President Trump. We'll toss that there now so you can keep the most up-to-date information on your government.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We just had a wonderful meeting with the greatest race car drivers in the world, and some really spectacular people that won the Indy 500 for the last, for the last 4 years, or last 2 years. and Roger Penske is so incredible, and the Daytona winners and the Daytona 24-hour champions. So it was really great to see them and to see those cars. Those cars are incredible. So there's a lot of winning out there, and we're having a good day in the stock market, as you can see, an all-time record day, and hopefully it continues. I think it should. Our country's stronger than it's ever been, and somebody had to do that with, we had to take the medicine. We had to go through the operation, and that's what we've been through, and a lot of presidents would not have done it. No president would have done it, I think, but it had to be done, and I just want to thank my team, this team here, and lots of others, and Scott and Howard have been incredible, and for energy, there's nobody like this man, and for the roads and highways, boy, you've done well, Sean, so we appreciate it, very much appreciate it, and if we could, well, let's see, we're starting a lot of executive orders, and some ambassadors have been approved,
Yes, sir.
and we're going to start that process right now. We're honored to have Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, great state of Michigan, and she's really done an excellent job, and a very good person. And we're working on the Selfridge, as you know, the air base. We're trying to get the air base open, keep it open. I think, Gretchen, if you're there, and Matt Hall, the Speaker of the House of Michigan, and he's been fantastic as the Speaker. I appreciate it. We won the state, Matt, and
we did.
You helped me a lot.
I did, and you made me Speaker, so thank you, Mr. President.
That's good too. And Gretchen, I think everybody knows. So we're working on that very hard, and I think we'll come home with a winner for Michigan. Okay? I just spoke with the Secretary of Defense. Sometimes we call him the Secretary of War. It used to be called the Secretary of War. They changed it when we became a little bit politically correct. But I think we're in great shape. We're going to be in great shape. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much, Matt. Congratulations. Great job. So we'll start with the first orders. And I think we have one for a man named Mike Huckabee. Does anyone know Mike Huckabee?
Yes, sir.
He's going to be a great ambassador to Israel. And they're thrilled to have him, that I can tell you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So the Senate confirmed Governor Huckabee to be your next ambassador to Israel earlier today. That's his commission as ambassador. And then we also have a transmittal letter to the President of Israel requesting that he accept Ambassador Huckabee's credentials.
He's going to be fantastic. He's going to bring home the bacon.
And then
even though bacon isn't too big in Israel.
That's just the third letter.
I had to clear that up.
Well said.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations to Mike
Huckabee. Next, sir, this is a big one. As you've consistently identified, restoring our maritime dominance as a nation is very important. From shipbuilding to having a merchant marine that's capable of supporting American military efforts, really up and down the line, restoring maritime dominance has been a priority of this administration. This executive order, which was prepared primarily by your National Security Council staff and National Security Advisor Waltz, has a number of very significant policy steps, all aimed at restoring American maritime dominance and ensuring that we have the shipbuilding capacity and ability to compete globally, both militarily and in the civilian space as well.
And that could be a good one for Michigan, too, because we're going to be spending a lot of money on shipbuilding. We're way, way, way behind. We used to build a ship a day, and now we don't do a ship a year practically, and we have the capacity to do it. So we'll talk to you about that. Okay, Matt? Think about that. That's a natural. Okay, shipbuilding. That's a good one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next executive order relates to defense procurement. Our current defense procurement process has been criticized by many folks on both sides of the aisle as being too slow to adapt to new and changing technologies, not delivering the sorts of weapons and systems that our warfighters need in order to compete on the battlefields of the future. So with this executive order, we're going to be modernizing the procurement structure that the Department of Defense uses to allow it to more quickly adapt to changing circumstances around the world. And we're also going to be launching a review of existing procurement programs to ensure that we're getting value for the money and to ensure that we're getting the best possible systems in the field.
And which are currently horrible. I tell you, they're horrible. That process is ridiculous, what they do. They get the highest price and not even good-looking equipment, and we're changing it. We're going to change it to the best. So this is very, very important. And I want to say hello to Brooke. Well, look at Brooke. She got the cost of eggs down 87%. 87%, Governor. We have somebody that's done a great job at Department of Agriculture, and Kristi Noem, who perhaps a few of you have heard of. She has done the most unbelievable job as somebody that's watching over our country at the border, and with Tom Homan and your whole staff of tremendous people. So thank you. Who would think that she is like meant for that job, huh? She's meant for it. So I just saw you there both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. We'll do it later, please.
Thank you, sir. Lastly, in the defense space, one persistent issue that we've had in terms of the issue of foreign defense sales, that we're unable to provide weapon systems in a reliable, effective way to key allies of ours, and a key driver of that is inefficiencies and inconsistencies with the process by which we approve foreign military sales. So this executive order is going to direct your Department of Defense, Department of State, other relevant departments and agencies to rework our system of foreign defense sales to ensure that we can provide equipment, creating American jobs and providing obviously revenue to American defense manufacturers, but provide key military equipment to our key allies in a reliable, effective way.
Okay, that's good. All very important. Okay. Because our budget is just about approved, and it's a big budget, and we want to spend the money properly, get the best equipment in the world. We rebuilt our military during my first term, rebuilt it entirely, beautiful. And then some was given away to Afghanistan so stupidly, the most embarrassing day in the history of our country, I think. But it's still, we have to fix it up a little bit, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a good job of it, too. Thank you.
Next up, sir, we have a series of executive orders and a memorandum all relating to deregulation, which has obviously been a major priority of your administration. The first of these is an executive order. The Biden administration launched what you've called a war on showers. They had certain regulations that basically killed the water pressure of showers and other water appliances.
You can say it. Go ahead. What are the appliances?
I mean, it's everything, sir.
Sinks and toilets.
Dishwashers, toilets, sinks. But the shower heads are a huge deal.
There's no water. You don't get water. It's ridiculous.
So with this executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real-deal shower head, they should have the ability to get one.
That's true. You buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers when no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. And I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. And what you do is you end up washing your hands 5 times longer. It's the same water. And we're going to open it up so that people can live, and we're going to hopefully have Congress approve it so it's memorialized. We're going to try and get all of these things, including straws, a little thing like straws. We did straws a month ago, where the paper straws were melting. They were dissolving. They weren't working well. And we went back to the plastic straws. We're going to get Congress to memorialize just about everything we've done here, because most of it's common sense. But the water is horrible. When you go into anytime you see a new faucet, You know, it's going to be a long wash of the hands. And so we're changing. It's a big deal. I did it in the first administration. Biden came in his first week, and he had no idea what he was doing, but somebody told him to do it. In his first week, he put the restrictions on all the bathroom utilities, even in areas that have so much water they don't know what to do with it. You see those areas all the time with the flooding. So we're doing that, and we're going to get all of the things that you've seen. I think we set a record. We're up to almost 200 and 500 amendments. Nobody's ever done that. We're going to get them approved by Congress, so they're memorialized. And we look forward to doing that. Very important. And Congress is going to start working on it as soon as we get the big, beautiful deal done. The big, beautiful deal is important. The biggest tax cuts in the history of our country, that's important. Okay. Okay, is that okay? Good. It's a 10.
You're taking a good shower.
We rate the signatures. That was a 10, that's why.
This is another executive order relating to deregulation, sir. There are a lot of regulations on the books that either promote monopoly directly or prevent new market entrants from entering into a given market. The net effect of that is very negative for consumers. So what this executive order is going to do is direct your departments and agencies to work with the FTC, with the Attorney General, with the Department of Justice, to ensure that the regulations we have on the books don't function as anti-competitive barriers to new market entrants. The net effect of all of that is going to hopefully be market forces that redound to the benefit of consumers and ordinary Americans as opposed to monopolistic businesses.
I said yesterday he was a great, great student at Harvard before it went bad. It's gone really bad. Now they're teaching their students mathematics, basic mathematics. Can you believe it? So what does that mean? They're allowing people in that can't add 2 and 2? What's going on at Harvard?
I went to law school there, sir, and it was pretty liberal when I was there, but it's gone way off the deep end in recent years.
I don't know if you read that. They're teaching them basic mathematics, people that got accepted to Harvard. How come they got accepted if they don't have mathematics? And we're holding back $8 billion. Can we believe? We give Harvard $8 billion. And we're holding back Columbia. We're holding back a lot of the schools because they were woke. And they've hurt a lot of people. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
There are a large number of regulations on the books. These are regulations that are currently in effect that we believe blatantly violate the law, blatantly violate Supreme Court precedent, that otherwise are just blatantly illegal. So what this presidential memorandum does basically just directs the heads of your departments and agencies to follow the law and to cease enforcing regulations that are blatantly illegal or unconstitutional.
It's a big deal. It's really very important that we get these memorialized in Congress. Very important for the long haul, right?
Yes, sir. This is the last of our deregulatory EOs for the day. This is zero-based regulatory budgeting. The idea here is that over time, regulations accumulate on the books and in the Federal Register, and people aren't taking a close, detailed look at what's on the books and clearing them out as times change or as regulations become dated or ineffective. What this executive order is going to require is each of your departments and agencies to scrutinize on a continuing rolling basis all of the regulations they actually have on the books and sunset those that either no longer serve a purpose or the departments and agencies can't identify a specific reason for keeping them active.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you've taken action against a number of law firms that have in one way or another been involved in the weaponization of government or actions of lawfare. One of those law firms is Sussman Godfrey, similar to what we've done previously with other law firms. This is an executive order that takes certain measures against Sussman Godfrey to ensure that they can't access government resources, government buildings, scrutinizing certain aspects of their practices as a law firm, given their previous activities.
And we've signed with many law firms, the ones that we thought were inappropriate, and they've all agreed to pay $1 million. They went for some pretty big numbers. I guess we have a total. What do we have? What's the total about? What's the total right now, Steve? About, would you say?
Getting close to probably 600-700 million now, I would think. We've multiple at 100 million, some at 125 million. So the numbers are adding up. We're going to be close to $1 billion soon.
One at $40 million. Millions of dollars an hour. But they don't admit guilt. Remember that, they don't admit guilt. But, and we have another 5 to go, I think, 5 of them. And this one is we're just starting a process with this one.
Yes, sir.
Because there were some very bad things that happened with these law firms.
And this firm is very involved in the election misconduct.
Weren't they all involved in the election misconduct? I think they were all involved.
Yes.
Anyway, so they went from $40 million to $125 million, and most of them are at about $100 million. Right? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next presidential memorandum we have for you relates to Miles Taylor. You may recall that Miles Taylor served in the Department of Homeland Security during your previous administration. In his capacity with the Department of Homeland Security, he leaked classified information. He wrote a book under the pseudonym Anonymous, making outrageous claims both about your administration and about others in it. What this presidential memorandum is going to do, one, it's going to strip any active clearance that he has in light of his past activities involving classified information. It's also going to order the Department of Justice to investigate his activities to see what else might come up in that context, given his egregious behavior during your previous administration.
And I had no idea who this guy was. I had no idea. I saw him on CNN, or one of them, I guess CNN, a lot. He'd be on all the time, saying that the president is the president. I had no idea. It's like, in this office you have a lot of young people, and they're here. I'll see him for 2 minutes, and I assume he was in the office, but I barely remember him. It was somebody that went out and wrote a book and said all sorts of terrible things that were all lies, and it was like he was this gentleman or that gentleman, like I dealt with him all the time. I had no idea who this guy. I said, who the hell is Miles Taylor? And he made a living on going on CNN talking about the president. And I think what he did, he wrote a book, Anonymous, said all sorts of lies, bad things. And I think it's like a traitor. It's like spying. He walks into the office. He's supposed to be sitting here. A lot of people, I'll be here, and there'll be 20 people standing in the room. There'll be oftentimes young people in the office. I assume he was one of them at least. But I didn't know anything about him. And he wrote a book, Anonymous, and I always thought it was terrible. And now we have a chance to find out whether or not it was terrible. But it was a work of fiction. Had a lot of publicity. Got himself a nice job with CNN, or one of them. And I think we have to do something about it. You can't have that happen. If that happens to other presidents, it wouldn't be sustainable for other presidents. I seem to be able to sustain. But if that happened to other presidents, it's just unfair. And if it was a Democrat president, I'd say that's a terrible thing. A thing like that can happen. That's a terrible thing. And it's time to find out whether or not somebody can do that. Can they write a book about very confidential meetings, and because they happen to be one of a lot of people in a room, and they go out and write a book, and worse than that, call it anonymous, like it's a big deal, and everybody's saying, who is it? Then it was found out who he was a long time later, and he got a lot of publicity off that one. He's like a promoter. But we're going to find out whether or not somebody's allowed to do that. I think it's a very important case, and I think he's guilty of treason, if you want to know the truth. But we'll find out. And I assume we're recommending this to the Department of Justice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Terrible guy.
Similarly, sir, Christopher Krebs, the former head of CISA. This is a man who weaponized his position against free speech in the election context, in the context of COVID-19. This is it's a similar presidential memorandum to the one you just signed. It addresses his access to government, existing clearances he might have, and further instructs your Department of Justice, other aspects of your government, to investigate some of the malign acts that he participated in while he was still head of CISA.
This is another one. I don't know that I met him. I'm sure I met him, but I didn't know him. And he came out right after the election, which was a rigged election, a badly rigged election. We did phenomenally in that election. Look what happened to our country because of it. Open borders, millions of people coming into our country. Russia and Ukraine, that would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened. Afghanistan, the way they withdrew with 13 dead, but so many killed, actually. I mean, so many killed outside of the 13 soldiers, hundreds of people killed. And maybe, I don't know, never mentioned, but I mentioned it, 42 or 43 people so badly injured, the legs, the arms, blown off, the face. And this is all because of an incompetent group of people that preceded us, and that would have never happened. And this guy Krebs was saying, oh, the election was great, it was great. Well, it's been proven that it was not only not great. When you look at all these lawyers and law firms that are signing, giving us hundreds of millions of dollars, it was proven by so many different ways in so many different forms, from the legislatures not approving to the 51 intelligence agents that worked from all of the different scamming operations. It was a very corrupt election. They used COVID to cheat. And we're going to find out about this guy, too, because this guy's a wise guy. He said, we've been proved this is the most secure election in the history of our country. No, this was a disaster. And frankly, we should go to paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID, and one other thing, you should get a little certificate that says you're a citizen of our country. You get a citizen piece of paper that says you're a citizen before you can vote. But you want voter ID and you want paper ballots, and you really want same-day voting. If you don't have same-day voting, they decide to change the air conditioner. Oh, we're fixing the air conditioner. Let's move all these boxes. We'll bring them back in a few days, and then they don't bring back those boxes. We got to have safe elections. We have to have borders. Ideally, we have to have a free press, which we don't have. We don't have a free press. We have a very dishonest press. This is an honor. We're going to find out whether or not he was right. This was a disgraceful election, and this guy sat back saying, well, I'm a member, or like he's a Republican or something, and almost right from the beginning. And he's tried to make the case that this election was a safe election. I think he said, this is the safest election we've ever had. And yet, every day you read in the papers about more and more fraud that's discovered. He's the fraud. He's a disgrace. So we'll find out whether or not it was a safe election. And if it wasn't, he's got a big price to pay. And he's a bad guy. There's another one. I have no idea who he is. Krebs. I have no idea who he is. I'm sure he was in the room at some point, just like you're all in the room, but I have no idea who he was. So thank you very much. Those last two are very important, I think, for the country.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, we just have 3 proclamations. These are the sorts of things that most presidents use an auto pen for. You obviously don't like using the auto pen much, if at all. The first of these is National Former Prisoner of War Recognition Day. This is one that you did in each of, I believe, each of the previous the years of your previous administration. Recognizes former prisoners of war. More generally, this proclamation is written to acknowledge the great steps you've made both in this administration and your previous administration on behalf of veterans, homeless veterans, others who have suffered in that way, and basically stating that it's a priority of your administration to ensure that veterans and homeless veterans are cared for properly.
Good. And you know what, they ought to find out who was using that auto pen, because whoever that person was, he or she was like the President of the United States, and I'm against auto pens. I think auto pens are not a good thing, especially when you're talking about documents like we're signing today. If he can't sign, then he can't be president. It's pretty simple. Let's see whether or not he could sign. But I think that should be tested. I really think that should be tested. It's another one. And you may think about it, because how can a man that, did he really know that when they gave all false information on the council, I mean, the whole unselect committee of political lunatics, they destroyed all the information. You can't get any information. They went for like a year and a half, almost 2 years, screaming and ranting and raving. Democrats plus two worse than Democrats. You had Cheney, Liz Cheney, and crying Adam Kinzinger. Crying Adam. Every time I looked at him, he was crying. The guy was a crier. But you can't do that. You just can't do that. So we're going to find out a lot. I think we're going to find out a lot. These last 3 or 4 have been they've been very, very interesting. We'll see what happens.
Sir.
But I don't think a president should be allowed to use an auto pen when they're signing very, important legislation. I think a president should sign it, not use an auto pen. And we're going to find out whether or not he knew what the hell he was doing. I'm sure at this point he'll say, I signed it. They'll tell him what to say. But to give pardons to people that destroyed all the information. If you destroyed information on a civil case, just a civil case, not a criminal case, a civil case, they put you in jail for that. And they found out that Pelosi was the one that was in charge of the security of the Capitol. She knew all about it, and she admitted her guilt to her daughter, who was a movie documentary person. I'm sure her daughter's not too happy about that. I'm sure Crazy Nancy's not too happy. But we found out all the things, everything. And we go for the information. Sir, we've destroyed all of that information. If I ever destroyed it, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I guarantee you that. I'd be sitting someplace else. So I think it's something that we should really look at, because that's so important. The whole concept of an auto pen, because whoever's, auto pens are run by somebody. Whoever ran the auto pen was president of the United States. And I would be willing to bet that Biden didn't know, probably didn't know anything about any of it. Very dangerous, very dangerous. So you're going to check that out, right?
Yes, sir. I'm working on it right now, sir. This is just another proclamation, sir, declaring National Crime Victims' Rights Week. You've obviously made it a major priority of your administration to track down and at times deport criminals who have committed violence on our streets, who have victimized so many people. This is an annual proclamation that hopefully gets Americans to remember that when crimes occur, there are real victims, there are real people who are affected, and there are people who suffer as a result.
Okay, it's very important. Thank you. I just want to add, so we're working very hard with Democrats, the governor, with Matt Hall, with a lot of transportation, Sean, and all of the people trying to keep Selfridge Air Force Base open, strong, thriving. And I think we're going to be successful, Governor. I think we'll be very successful at that. We've gotten some good feedback from Pete Hegseth and Department of Defense. And they're talking about F-16s, they're talking about F-35s, et cetera. It's a great piece of property, it's a great location, and it's a great state. So I think we're going to come back with a very good answer. We're also working on a certain fish that's taken over a beautiful lake called Michigan, right? And that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's very. Do you want to just talk about that?
Sure, Mr. President. Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for caring so much about Michigan. We've been working a long time. We couldn't get Joe Biden to do anything about either one of these issues, particularly Selfridge Air Force Base.
And as we await a President Trump departure from Joint Base Andrews on that rainy view that we have of Air Force One, of course, President Trump signing some crucial executive orders, namely to investigate, directing his office to look into Miles Taylor. He was a former Homeland Security official, also Christopher Krebs, a top cybersecurity official overseeing elections, both political appointees during the president's first term. Of course, much turmoil surrounding those two. Potentially, as President Trump said, his administration will look into this in the Department of Justice because they might be guilty of treason with the things that they committed, the lawfare, the Russia hoax, among many others, even surrounding that 2020 election. So we will watch that closely. President Trump directing his administration to look further into those things. You may not know their names, but sadly, we saw those people who got their 15 seconds of fame, probably huge paydays, and then also employed by other places to perpetuate big lies, to perpetuate conspiracy theories against President Trump. And it's very simple when you really break it down. And as we are looking into the crossfire hurricane declassification of crooked Hillary Clinton, Barack Hussein Obama, and of course those who sought to prevent President Trump, a private citizen, from becoming the president of the United States or cut the legs out from under him while he served in that first term. We know that many of them are associated with the deep state globalists, regardless of Republican Party, Democrat Party, Independent, whatever their affiliation is. We know that they are focused on going up against you, the American people. But as President Trump said, most people cannot handle it, but he can because he's tough as really anything you can imagine. He's a brick wall. It's impassable. You're not going to get through President Trump. You're not even going to get around President Trump because of his abilities. And thank God for that, because he said in the signing of the EOs, we need to make sure future presidents, both Republican and Democrat, don't face this kind of lawfare, aren't upended or gone after in an illegal manner in order to remove a duly elected president of the United States. So we see it right there for what it is. At the same time, President Trump also giving credit where credit's due, as Michigan's governor, Gretchen Whitmer, had to sit there and listen to all that, which I enjoyed immensely because she is someone who's very far to the left, but finding common ground with President Trump to protect the rivers, the water, the 20% natural water that's in the world happens to be in and surround the Wolverine state of Michigan. And a wonderful place to visit in the summertime, especially between Memorial Day and Labor Day if you have the opportunity. Great fishing, great hunting. Also, some of the most beautiful forests in the entire world, along with some of the best beaches as well along the west coast of the lower peninsula. So the LP, as they call it. They also call it the Mitten part of Michigan, as it's two peninsulas, a very interestingly shaped state. So Gretchen Whitmer there, someone who's clearly interested in becoming president, but finding common ground with President Trump during those executive order signings, along with secretaries of the cabinet. Again, we're awaiting President Trump at Joint Base Andrews, a rainy day in Washington, D.C. You can see the cameramen there really wiping off the lens as part of the press pool, and that is the wing we stood under as we were prepared to ask President Trump some questions when we had a chance to travel with him just 1 month ago. And that was a wonderful day leading up to St. Patrick's Day. But President Trump going to sunnier weather in southern Florida, of course, to Mar-a-Lago, the winter White House, and really the southern White House. So many nicknames for such a lovely estate, which was once envisioned to be a presidential retreat. It became a presidential retreat once again with President Trump taking office. Of course, he's owned that wonderful property for the last 40 years. And it's quite a sight to see. I mean, something Spanish architecture, unlike really any other home in the United States. So something worth viewing. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Kalshi, when will Bitcoin hit that $150,000 mark? Well, you can trade those live questions and bets now at kalshi.com/RSBN. So go ahead and scan that QR code or visit online Kalshi. It's KALSHI.com/RSBN. And will that happen before 2026? Will that happen before July or October? You can place that bet or that trade right at kalshi.com/RSBN. Something great to do if you're in the betting mood. And other questions on that site will be things like, will President Trump seek that third term? Will egg prices go down? Who will win the Masters, whether it be Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, or perhaps Bryson DeChambeau, someone who enjoys playing golf with President Trump on a regular basis. And of course, we know he's a golf fan himself. In fact, that weekend when we traveled to Palm Beach with him, that's what he went down there to do. Not only a working weekend and busy killing Houthi rebels at the behest of our generals with surgical strikes coming right off the golf course to do that. Those are some cool images. But President Trump rightfully retaining his championship at Trump International Palm Beach, and he won when he visited the Live Golf Tournament last week as well, the senior competition. So President Trump with plenty of golf trophies in his own right, one of his favorite activities, and definitely a lover of the game, which really fits the American presidency, because especially since Dwight D. Eisenhower, the great general in World War II, when he became president, they had replaced those oak floors in the Oval Office, but you could wear the steel cleats back then. They were still legal. So you can actually view the scuff marks from Ike from back in the day. So how cool is that to see that living history at the Oval Office? And ever since, pretty much every president since Dwight D. Eisenhower somewhat obsessed with or at least enjoyed the game of golf. But the worst, according to Michael Jordan, Barack Hussein Obama. So not only a failed president, but a really bad golfer, especially for how much he plays. But that's why I'm wearing my green, ready for Masters weekend, as I'm sure President Trump is, awaiting his arrival to Joint Base Andrews via Marine One to then board that beautiful 2900 insignia Boeing 757 United States of America Air Force plane, which will become Air Force One, the call sign used when the Commander-in-Chief is on board. So that's a funny side note of American history and some military history as well. That plane, say President Trump got onto his own plane of Trump Force One, that would then become Air Force One, because it's only given that insignia, that call sign, once the president is on board. So a fun little fact there. As, oh, whoa, looks like the cameraman is wiping my face off. Don't worry, I'm not sweating. I'm just excited for this weekend and President Trump with all of the victories he's had. On day 81, we're looking at week 12 of this extraordinary administration. An administration that really has put the best and the brightest into a cabinet. They don't need the job. These are subject matter experts who I'm sure would rather be doing other things, but really listen to the call of history, listen to President Trump as he requested them to serve in his administration. How great was that to watch just the other day, that meeting with the cabinet, going one by one on the items they are all working on. And whether that's Pam Bondi, focused at the Department of Justice as the Attorney General, on those who would choose to attack your private property. These are these Tesla terrorists who want to go and kick or, take a key to the car. Even in one situation, I found a guy, and that's what's funny about these Tesla cars. They all have 9 or so cameras on average that get different angles. So this guy walks up to the car in the parking garage and just starts kicking it. He ends up going to dinner. And then so the owner sees all of this. He trails him, waits for them to get out of dinner, and then the police arrest him. Like, why would you do that? Like, really think for a moment. Is your woke mind virus that bad that you're willing to hurt someone's private property, something they worked for, I'm sure saved up for, to enjoy these electric cars, and then you attack them. It shows you the difference of conservatism and the far left progressives. That's the big difference when you look at this, because conservatives want to literally conserve. It's in the name. They respect private property rights. They might disagree with you, but they're willing to have that discussion. The far left progressive said, I'm insulted by the electric vehicle, so I go and kick it. That makes a lot of sense, because the owner happens to be serving the country and is finding waste, fraud, and abuse. And and by the way, running some of the most brilliant companies that the world has ever seen, whether it be X or, of course, the great work that he's doing with NASA and bringing these great rockets up into the sky. As President Trump says, they literally have arms that bring them back down, so you don't even waste anything in that process. So, I digress. Well, we have the motorcade coming up, so we're going to toss it there live now to Joint Base Andrews, see if we can get a catch of President Trump live.
On the phone.
Wheels up. It's the weekend. Air Force One, now the call sign given to that Boeing 757. Of course, the premier aircraft of the United States Air Force. President Trump aboard. A rainy day, wow, in the Washington, D.C. area. Of course, Walter Reed is on the other side of D.C. to the northwest, and this is more the southeast of Maryland, of course, the Joint Base Andrews. So some distance apart, but arriving by motorcade. Instead of the traditional Marine One, perhaps the weather there that's affecting that. But President Trump en route from Joint Base Andrews to Palm Beach International Airport in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, of course, the home of Mar-a-Lago, the southern White House. And President Trump really, I think, is in for a great weekend, as always, with a working weekend, but also perhaps some golf as he prepares for negotiations. The Iranian regime will be discussing with high individuals from the United States government regarding how to move forward on a number of peace items. We know from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, lots of discussion regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the further peace negotiations there. We've had Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visit President Trump in the past week about tariffs, trade barriers being removed between the two nations, also the ongoing conflict with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels, and radical Islamic terrorists. We know now that roughly 34 more hostages still need to be released that we know of, whether dead or alive. President Trump focused on bringing them all home in a situation that should have never happened. As he mentioned with those EOs earlier this week, so many things, an open southern border, to the lawfare that took place, to people that are perhaps treasonous, and justice will face them with this Justice Department. So many things should not have happened in the last Otto Penn administration, and he said this administration will get to the bottom of it. As we see continued discussions and change in the stock market reacting to the tariffs put on the table by President Trump, of course, the 90-day pause on other nations, solely focused now on the Chinese Communist Party. And I'm sure they are sweating because they cannot survive without our markets. They cannot compete against the superpower known as the United States. And for too long, they've been manipulating their currencies. For too long, 25 years now, they have been breaking all the rules. When they came into the World Trade Organization, thanks to former President Bill Clinton and then Senator Otto Penn Biden, who would toast the chairman, Xi Jinping, of course, then still in high leadership in the Chinese Communist Party, but not near the power he has amassed now in 25 years. Of course, he was willing to toast champagne back then, and he claimed to be Scranton Joe and that he cared for the middle class. Nothing could have been further from the truth. These were globalist policies in the Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Otto Penn administration that President Trump is reshaping, and rightfully so that you, the American people, can have that chance at the American dream, so that the auto worker can bring home a fair wage and also afford groceries, so that this American economy can once again flourish again, export the best goods in the world, and also strengthen the American dollar. So be cool, stick with us, and relax, as President Trump has shared over Truth Social this week, because we know that these tariffs are working. There's no question, because 70 countries came to the table asking President Trump to renegotiate all trade deals or barriers that do exist, whether they are friend or foe, because they've been taking advantage of the United States for too long. We've talked about it here with great leaders around the world, including Ruby Dalla, who we had an interview with, of the Liberal Party of Canada. And she wants all of those trade barriers or tariffs gone between Canada and the United States. Of course, Canada in a unique situation with the USMCA, that only tariffs were affecting Canada specifically when it came to fentanyl trafficking. And of course, those gangs, those foreign terrorist organizations under the last administration somehow got past the southern border and then up through our northern border and were operating out of Canada. Thanks to Sleepy Joe and thanks to former Governor of Canada, Justin Trudeau, as well. So the Biden-Trudeau dream team of communists really weakened North America. No longer so with, God willing, Mark Carney, the new leader of not only the Liberal Party, but the Prime Minister of Canada. Maybe give him a chance. Perhaps President Trump speaking with him soon. We'll see how that goes, as he is taxiing now at Joint Base Andrews. And speaking further with that, as I mentioned to Ruby, who we hope to have back on the network because she was so has been in the middle of it as a former member of parliament, as a former candidate for prime minister herself. You know, I just brought to light that the dairy farmers, so affected over the years by those 24% or more tariffs coming from Canada on our dairy farmers in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So it's just funny when other leaders say, hey, we don't want the tariffs happening to us, but oh, we'll sure give it to you, the American people. This president will not stand for it, whether it's friend or foe. Of course, the door is always open. The conversation always ready, willing, and able to have with this great commander-in-chief as he departs from Joint Base Andrews outside of Washington, D.C., the beautiful state of Maryland, receiving a lot of stormy weather today, down to that sunshine state of Florida, the free state of Florida, to enjoy Mar-a-Lago, some golf, and a working weekend, a big one on hand to negotiate terms with the Iranian regime to make sure that they never get a nuclear weapon. They can't have it. It's just a very simple standard America has. And hopefully they will come into realizing that their extremist ways are no longer welcome throughout the region, that they're truly isolationists and extremists within the Middle East. So Abraham Accords 2.0, here we go, as President Trump seeks peace through strength. It's an exciting time for our country. On Monday, he will be meeting with, of course, the El Salvadorian president, Mr. Bukele. He will be coming to the United States, as Caroline Leavitt mentioned in her press briefing today. And thank you to his leadership for bringing those bad hombres and those real terrible, terrible individuals, those illegal aliens who committed atrocious crimes in the United States, facing justice in El Salvador behind criminal bars. And of course, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem meeting recently there and showcasing those prisons. So she said, quite simply, if you come to the United States, break the laws, and then commit heinous crimes, this could be where you end up. And those were some bad hombres for sure. We'll see if we get any more footage. Oh, looks as if we see it there. Air Force One taxiing right around that beautiful Air Force Base, Joint Base Andrews. And thank you to our military. Thank you to those people who put on a uniform day in and day out, whether you are local or state police or you serve in our Secret Service. Whatever that uniform is, thank you for your selfless service. In many cases, working those long hours, those long nights, those early mornings. We've seen the raids where Kristi Noem is on those, along with FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi. You are true servants, loving this country and serving us in such a way to protect us so we can live out our American dreams. We'll go full screen now to the live takeoff of Air Force One from Joint Base Andrews to Palm Beach International Airport. And once again, wheels up. It's the weekend for President Trump on Air Force One, heading down to the Sunshine State, Mar-a-Lago, and that beautiful Trump International Palm Beach. And there's the beautiful city of Auburn, live from Toomer's Corner on the premier campus of the SEC. It just matters more here. And you see that sunshine with a little mix of rain, it looks like here now. It was a sunny day earlier. I have not seen the outside for a couple of hours here, so I can't wait to go outside and see what's happening on campus as we are celebrating Masters Weekend, that granddaddy of them all. The finest competition in golf, of course, live from Augusta, Georgia. So make sure you go over to Kalshi, place your bets on who will win this weekend. But while you're at that, make sure you get the best cup of joe in all of the land as well. It's the longevity bundle, the ultimate longevity bundle for 1775coffee.com/RSBN. It's a $250 deal going for $99. Not only do you save $150, but this coffee has a compound in it that makes you look and feel up to 8 years younger in as little as 7 months. And God knows I don't need any more caffeine, but I have this on its way. I have ordered this bundle and there's only 1,000 left. So make sure you get yours now. 1775coffee.com/RSBN. I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to taste it. I'm a coffee connoisseur myself. And for a savings of $150, well, that makes sense. On top of the fact that I'll have the ability to get even younger. Well, count me as sold. 1775coffee.com/RSBN. Be quick to do this weekend. There's only 1,000 left. I'm sure there won't be many left for long. Again, 1775coffee.com/RSBN. And MyPillow.com, the My Mattress Topper sale going on right now, a limited time only. For $99.99, the promo code RSBN, MyPillow.com/RSBN. 2,000 items for up to 50% off from the freedom fighter himself, Mr. Election Integrity, purveyor of the freedom of speech we love in this land, Mr. Mike Lindell. Call today, do not delay, for the best products made in the good old U.S. of A. 800-836-7566. Mike Lindell, My Pillow, thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And you cannot forget as well, Colonial Metals Group. Get this free, no obligation guide. It will detail just the things that matter most for the things against inflation and also preparing for retirement. Gold up over 840% in growth and value since the year 2000. Remember Y2K? We thought the computers were going down. Well, in 24 years, that hasn't stopped the gold. Up over 7,000% since 1971, when Richard Nixon and his administration went off the gold standard. A really foolish move, but nonetheless, prepare yourself with properties, assets, 401ks and IRAs, but most of all with gold and silver. The Chinese Communist Party is out of control. They want trade wars against the United States. They want naval war games against Taiwan. And they've been very clear by 2027 how they want to have the most robust, strongest Navy in all of the world. And God knows there's rumors, too, that they have clone armies and other things they're doing. We know they harvest and experiment on people with the poor Uyghur Muslims that they are literally trafficking and sending to concentration camps. They are an evil, evil empire, and we have to be watchful and mindful and fight for the freedom of all people. But in the meantime, watch the freedom of your wallets as well, and how this is affected household to household on an international scale. So gold and silver, get that now. Thank you to Paul Stone, the CEO of this great organization. We look forward to having him on soon to talk again about how crucial this is to protect you and yours and your nest egg. Colonial Metals Group. Scan the QR code now. Shield your savings and heed the warnings of those billionaires out there like Warren Buffett. Billions of dollars put into the stock market and into gold and silver. freegoldguy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And look at that. That beautiful sunshine is out there. It's going to be a great sunset over the friendliest village on the plains. That almost looks like a picture, Mr. Director, almost like a painting. Does not look like it's real time from Toomer's Corner. I might stop on down there for a happy hour lemonade en route to, I got some church events tonight. There's some few other things to celebrate the closing of this Lenten season as Easter is right around the corner. So Palm Sunday, God be with you. Reflect this upcoming week on the sacrifice that ultimately was Jesus on Calvary and what he did to open up the communion between mere mortals and our Father in heaven by accepting that mission that ultimately led to the cross. So what can you do to help out your fellow countrymen, your neighbors, your friends and family to make this a more perfect union nearly 250 years in existence? Get all America First updates in the meantime with exclusive offers at Right Side Broadcasting Network. That's rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Great writers here at the network. Also, if you're so moved to donate, we'd appreciate that so much as citizen journalists here at the network. That's rsbnetwork.com/donate. donate. So 2 great things to do over the weekend as you enjoy the Masters tournament with your loved ones. For all my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a joy to be with you to cover everything America First, inside and outside of the Beltway, bringing to you unbridled access to the government you put into place back on November 5th of 2024. Peacefully and patriotically saying no to globalism and the far left, but rather putting back into office a freedom fighter, the people's president, the true constitutionalist, the federalist himself, President Donald John Trump. Have a safe weekend. God bless you. Unless there's breaking news, enjoy everything this weekend, this beautiful spring, as we look forward to seeing you on Monday. Have a great weekend. God bless. Take care of yourselves. And we'll see you very soon on the right side of history.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.